Welcome my business and IT classes to our new reality lessons online. And this is my kitchen. So welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to address everybody today because I have a special message today. This weekend was the commemoration of Victory in Europe Day, 75th anniversary, and we're still under lockdown conditions. And we know now that they are not going to change immediately for us in education. So we're going to continue to work with those. I think what was very poignant about this weekend's commemoration was a couple of things. First of all, that it was sad, really, that all of the events that we had planned, the things that we planned to do to commemorate this incredible event, all had to get cancelled. And I felt badly, particularly for those that won't be around anymore to commemorate future anniversaries, those that were actually in the conflict. I felt sad for them. Um, and then there was the very unusual way in which we celebrated, which was obviously from isolation, not breaking the rules, and in a very moving way that I think ultimately probably put more emphasis on this time, on the time of the victory in Europe and what it meant to our country. And so, even after we had to cancel everything we had planned to commemorate, it seemed like some good came out of the situation because we were actually able to focus a little bit more on the event. And that got me thinking quite a bit. I mean, I'm in isolation. I do have a flatmate, but I can't be anywhere near him. He is takes care of the elderly, and I literally have to go into my room when he comes back, and I'm self-isolated there for literally 12 hours every day. So I've had lots of time to reflect, and I was thinking about that particular conflict, World War II, horrendous conflict, but all of the good that's come out of it. And I just want to highlight one thing. Um, you may ask, where did the technology come from that we are communicating through today? And interestingly enough, it didn't come through the way that I thought it came. Someone in, some IT company invented it. It literally came out of World War II. We were in 1939. We were in a desperate situation, and Hitler definitely had the upper hand. And his hand was beginning to look dominant in the world, and we knew what that meant, the horrors that that meant, or we knew some of the horrors that that meant. And so we desperately started focusing on breaking the code that is how he instructed his armed forces to do the terrible things they were doing. We thought if we could at least break that code, we could begin to catch up and maybe eventually win. And a person by the name of Alan Turing and his team up in Bletchley Park were assigned to this task. Now, Alan Turing, interestingly enough, used to stay in St. Leonard's quite frequently. And so he's, if you like, we can claim him as local. And Alan and his team ultimately cracked the Enigma code just in time to really turn things around. And this could have been unbelievably serious had we not done this. Just to emphasize to you, Hitler had the nuclear scientists that were inventing the bomb. Most of those scientists worked for Hitler. If we had not cracked that code in time, we would not have found out where these rockets were located, called V2s, that Hitler had already invented, that could very easily have carried a nuclear warhead into the heart of London. And so when his team cracked that code, that was a real turning point for us. and ultimately we secured victory, the victory that we celebrated. Now, what did his team have to do to break that code? Well, he and his team had to invent modern computing. That was the only way to break the code. No other way. No simple tools that existed at the time could have done it. They had to invent the computer. So out of that awful time, that oppressed time that must have felt even that much worse. I mean, we're in isolation, but at least there aren't bombs falling from the sky as there were then. But out of that awful set of events came so many things that we take for granted today. And so that really got me to thinking about what can come out of this that's positive. And let's really start focusing on that. So I'm going to take a break from lessons for a moment because I have a little presentation that I would like to take you through. And here we go. Just one moment while I put it into the correct mode. I'm still learning this technology. There we go. And slideshow. There we are. Great. So what I've entitled my presentation for today to you is our education, our future, our business, and our challenge. What I want to do is really talk about where we are today, what this means to your future, your employment, your education, and how we can free ourselves to learn from anywhere and literally join the key workers in this war on COVID-19, but not certainly leaving our homes or breaking any of the rules. But doing this, we are actually fighting the virus incredibly effectively, and I'll explain myself in a moment. So the last 2 days of school, when we realized what was going on, I told my classes, I'm going to stop ignoring the elephant in the room. And what I meant by that was I was trying to teach lessons as usual, and the world had changed. And the elephant in the room was this pandemic. And so we started to talk about, in business terms initially, but then it got broader, what this meant for our world. What were our initial predictions as to what this will do to our world, for the better and for the worse? And I did this because in business, I've learned that business is all about planning for events that haven't taken place yet, contingency planning. And the strength of a business very often resides, when challenges come along, in how prepared it is with this unusual challenge. And how easily it was able to adapt to the changes that this challenge presented. And this particular challenge has produced, has forced huge changes. And so I think it's important we talk about them. So I'm going to go through these quickly. Business and the private sector, meaning those parts of society owned by individuals or groups of individuals or private investors. Obviously, we could already tell then businesses were being ordered to close. This was not going to be good for business. And so we moved business and the private sector into the losers column. Now, there's a question mark about government and the public sector. And keep in mind, our public sector includes our healthcare, the NHS. So how is the government and the public sector going to fare out of this? Now, this is not a political statement in any way, but we all have to keep in mind where we were coming from. We were coming out of this bruising battle over Brexit, where many people felt in the last parliament that the will of the people was slightly to leave and the parliament itself didn't seem to be wanting to execute those wishes. And so literally our trust in government had sunk to probably the lowest levels that I can remember. What we've now done is we've handed over our freedom to our government. 90% of us, highest compliance, apparently just about any nation, 90% of us plus are following the rules as instructed by our government. We've handed over our freedom to our government, and in exchange, we expect as much safety as possible, and a solution for this crisis. So on that basis, I would say government and public sector are winners. However, obviously, things were not done perfectly, and things need to be investigated after the fact, not right now. But there are some investigations and some lessons that need to be learned from what happened. The economy obviously is a loser. Best case scenario I'm hearing right now is what's called a V-shaped recession, which means we got into it very fast and we're going to get out of it very fast. It could be anywhere from that to a full long-term depression. And we just don't know how that's going to play out, but we can do our part to make sure that it has as little impact as possible. And that is what I'm going to come to in a moment. The environment. Clearly, the planes stopped running, the factories stopped churning out the pollutants, and this has been a huge plus, actually, for the environment. Everywhere from locally hearing the birds sing loudly for the first time in a while, because there's nothing for them to compete with. Dolphins in the canals in Venice, which was just unfathomable prior to this. But probably the most moving story is a group of elderly Chinese in one of these Chinese cities of 8 to 10 million people that literally the government was able to put up overnight. And the city had been in place for a number of years, about 10 years, I believe. These elderly residents were looking up at a blue sky and in amazement, and they were staring at these two wonderful skyscrapers that had suddenly appeared overnight. And they were they just marveled at how their government had done that. Well, the government hadn't. The factories had all been shut down at the beginning of this outbreak in China. The planes had stopped flying. The pollution that filled the air had had time to clear, and what was already there was viewable. So definitely the environment is a plus. Pubs and restaurants in trouble before this, and they were the first businesses ordered closed. So if you have a family restaurant that you really like to go to, and if after this you have the means to do so, please support those businesses. They are really hurting. Home delivery services obviously is a huge plus. That is our way to get things other than our one trip to the grocery store every once in a while, only when absolutely necessary. High street shops, they were already in trouble. They are now in desperate trouble here. And I think this will hasten the growth of e-commerce and the transition from the high street to online in a fairly significant way. Obviously, internet and technology is a huge winner. E-commerce is obviously a huge winner. Key workers, all of those that have to go into a place of work to support us in this, I would certainly hope that their positions, even whether they're a janitor in a supermarket or a doctor in the NHS, I really hope that the appreciation they feel today will last, and that it will become tangible for them where it needs to. It will become real. So I would say key workers have to be winners of this situation, that they are so appreciated. Um, the NHS and social care, I put in the winners column because I think it's going to be a long time before you hear any discussion of cutting those budgets again. And I think we're going to see a real investment in social care probably come out of this as well. So those I would put in the winners column. International travel, possibly the biggest loser out of everybody. This virus, this pandemic became a pandemic because in the 2 weeks it takes to appear, it was already scattered to the globe, and there was nothing we could have done from that point forward. So international travel, while wonderfully freeing, wonderfully educational, also has its drawbacks, and a very serious downside was seen. This is one industry I doubt will be back to how it was, certainly in my lifetime, probably not in yours. I think the use of our tools to be where we need to be has been emphasized strongly. I did add one, and it's very bold, and this is my hometown of St. Leonard, so I'm biased here. But UK seaside towns, I would say, are going to be winners. And there are two reasons for that. One, international travel was the competing force to people going to the seaside. It was often cheaper to go to Spain than it was to go to Hastings. Well, that is now changing in a very big way. And I think that from a tourism standpoint will help Hastings. But there's another whole group of people that someone pointed out to me the other day. And that is the many people that are so dedicated to this town for whatever reason that they have been paying for that dedication with as long as a 4-hour round trip commute a day. Well, those folks have been working from home. And those folks may have difficulty going back into the office because if you apply social distancing rules to public transport, 90% of the people in buses and tubes in London can no longer go on the bus or the tube. So the ability to work from home has probably been noted by a lot of employers, and it's probably increased like never before. So these individuals, instead of investing that 4 hours on this brutal commute and coming back to the town they love exhausted, can now invest some of that time right where they live to make things better right here and still do the jobs that they have and maybe commute occasionally into the office. So I think UK seaside towns like Hastings, I'm willing to say, big winner. Mental health, obviously I put in the losing category. This is having a strain on our mental health. And what's so wonderful today, one thing I can learn so much from the students today is that you view mental health as health. In fact, why am I even labeling it mental? Is what one student said to me. And it's absolutely right. In my generation, we used to separate the two. One, we talked about freely, the physical health, and the mental health we hid away, in many cases, in shame. And that is not how it should be treated, particularly now. The strain of being in total isolation, which means different things for each of us based on our family situation, is really tough. We had some initial reports, and generally they described 3 different groups emerging from lockdown. 2 large groups, about 45% each. The first group are the acceptors. They accept the situation. It may have been an adjustment at first. They've adapted their routines to it. And secretly, while they may not admit it, many of these folks are actually enjoying it. They're enjoying the quiet. They're enjoying the time with families that they might not otherwise have. They're enjoying the time to connect with friends all over the world that they might not otherwise have had. They are making the most of it. They're accepting the situation, and they will certainly have an easier time as we gradually come out of that situation, the acceptors. The second group, another 45%, are the fighters. The fighters felt that the whole thing was surreal when it happened. They woke up on another planet. It's changed their lives so massively that they really didn't know what to do first. They don't like it. They feel oppressed. They feel like they're in prison and they're restricted and their freedom is gone. And they feel very, very frustrated with the situation. That group, their secret is this, and this is fascinating. Whereas the acceptors are they're about 90-95% compliant. Back when the rules initially came out and we weren't supposed to even go outside for a walk, they took their walk because that didn't make sense. So they were fine. They didn't obey every single rule, but they obeyed all of the ones that made sense, and they get it. Well, the fighters actually did something else, something that you wouldn't expect. The fighters started to make up additional rules. The fighters are more likely to complain if others don't follow the rules or report them to police. A report came out that the UK is the most likely nation by far, by double on the face of the earth, for neighbors to report neighbors to the police. So those fighters, those that are fighting it inside, are also the ones that are more likely to complain if others are not compliant. And they literally add rules. They literally make it harder on themselves to deal with this situation. And then the third group are those that are non-compliant. They're acting like nothing has changed. They're going about their lives as usual. That is about 10% of the population, maybe a little less, which again makes us the highest compliance country on earth. So we did pretty well there. And the only thing I can say about those folks, there's no real excuse for their behavior and the damage that it does. But the only fortunate thing is their actions were factored into the model on which the decisions about lockdown were made. So there was an allowance for a few folks who would not comply. Now, I have a confession to make. I have been in the fighter group. I was not paying attention when we got into this situation. I wasn't watching every report on the virus. I had to deal with some year 11 exam issues, and business was one of only a couple of subjects to actually have its year 11 exam on the very last day of school. And I think I was distracted. And when I realized the situation that I was in, I didn't like it at all. I became very angry and frustrated. I imposed all kinds of rules that were not absolutely necessary to make it even tougher for me. I didn't take my walk when everyone else was before that rule changed. And I was just very frustrated with this situation. So I can't change anyone else. I can't make someone who's fighting the situation become someone who's accepting the situation. They have to make that decision. But today, as a part of this decision, as a part of this presentation, I am announcing that I'm switching camps. I'm going from the fighters to the acceptors. I'm accepting that this is my situation and that together we are going to get the very, very most out of it that we can. So on employment, I'm afraid that will be negatively affected. The only question is how badly. Best case scenario, it probably feels a bit like the recession of the early 80s. I know you weren't around, maybe some of your parents don't remember the early 80s. I do, because I graduated university that year into a very, very difficult employment market. And the problem with high unemployment rates as it impacts students is this. We are the least likely to have any work experience. So when we are interviewing for employment, not only are there hundreds more competitors per position, but we don't have that employment experience to talk about. What we do have is our education. And I was very fortunate because a couple of teachers inspired me in my life. I had invested heavily in my own education, and that stood me in good stead. And eventually I was able to get a job, get settled, start a career, even have a second career now teaching. So, education is key to getting employment. The more we get out of our education, the better set we will be when interviewing for jobs, whether we go beyond college to university or not. That's still a very, very important aspect. I'm not predicting your education or our education as a winner or a loser, because that's what this presentation is about, because that really is our choice and that is our challenge. So, our challenge is this. We have, and this sounds like science fiction, but we know it's not, we have an alien invader amongst us, a foul, disgusting virus called COVID-19. It's invisible. It threatens to suffocate not only ourselves, but it threatens to suffocate our future. It prevents us from being with our friends, and it deprives us even of the hug of a loved one. COVID-19 wants, even worse than that, to conscript us in its army, to turn us into the assassins of those we love most. It wants us isolated. It wants us lonely. It wants us sick. And then it wants us dead. This is, I think, the most evil thing we've seen on this planet since Adolf Hitler. And so it's quite fitting that we had that commemoration over the weekend. But our global counterattack on COVID-19 has begun. We have a brave army and a diverse army of key workers. You know who they are. Many of them are in your families. Doctors and nurses, orderlies and cleaners, supermarket employees, delivery drivers, carers, and too many are paying the ultimate sacrifice. They are at far greater risk because of what they do to help. So we have a celebration of them on Thursday nights, and it's really heartwarming, and I hope you're participating in it. And I hope if you have them in your family, that you're letting them know how much they're appreciated. My flatmate works 6 days out of 7, 12-hour shifts, taking care of the elderly. It is brutal. He's very tired when he gets home. I do now all of the house chores. I try not to complain about it one bit, because that's my little bit to help. And I hope we're saying thank you to our postman, for example, when we see him through our windows, and let him know, him or her know how much we appreciate them still delivering the mail, because they are indeed putting themselves at greater risk to help us. So, once this is over, I hope that we never again take those positions for granted, and that we ensure we invest in those areas for the future. But our challenge is this. We see these folks doing their part. What are we going to do to show our tangible appreciation, our real, something you can touch appreciation to them with the lives that they've saved? Because that's what they've done. What are we doing to play our part? So this is my suggestion to you, that we, you and I, teachers, students, and parents, join the fight against COVID-19 with far more than just isolation and appreciation. Let's reopen one business today that didn't require the Prime Minister's permission to reopen. See, our virtual business of the future, and we have one, we're participating in it, our virtual business of the future is our education. It's just done in a different way than we've been used to. So let's make sure that today that business reopens. If you haven't already done so, if you have already done so, you are to be commended. And I've got at least 20 or 30 students I'm seeing more work out of at a higher quality than ever. I do want to single out one student. His name is James. I'm not going to give last name. Can be a bit of a handful in the classroom. That's all I'm going to say about that. I've seen some of the most marvelous work from this student that I certainly the best work I've seen from him ever in business class. And I think he is feeling good about that too. I certainly hope he is. So James, much appreciated to you for your efforts and for already opening your virtual business of the future before I requested it to be open. So our new business of the future, our education, will take place anytime and anywhere, so that we will never again have to choose to close it when the enemy attacks, be it a virus, a snowstorm, or a nasty tummy. So we want to make a change to the way we learn, to our education, that will survive any future challenges that could be thrown at it, and that will allow us to overcome this particular challenge. So learners in our business will move from the back of the class to the center, and in our virtual classroom, if you like. And teachers and parents or guardians will surround you in a virtual hug of support. But you are very, very definitely at the center. If you thought the teacher was at the center of the class, that is no longer so. COVID-19 took care of that. I am a support to you. But you have to make the decision to open your own virtual business of the future, your education today, and take it back from this virus that is threatening to take it from you. So whether we are in the same place again one day, which I'm sure we will be, or whether we only exist virtually, won't matter to the way that we are going to reopen that business. Because we're on a journey. We're going to transport ourselves virtually using our tools to where the learning is. And I'm going to do my best, my level best, to improve the production standards of these videos. Number one, I'm going to invest in a green screen so that I can project my image on various backgrounds. I'm going to do everything I can to take you on the most exciting journey possible. So the business class of the future, our education, isn't just about business class either. It is about every class, and it is about no class. And what do I mean by that? Every class, well, all of your other classes, some of which you meet twice as much as you meet with business, they will all be going virtual to one extent or another. So because they are using business tools to do this, I'm trying to present those tools to you and teach you about going into business for yourself at home in your learning in a way that will benefit all of your other classes. And I'm also getting from the other classes some tools that they use that I hadn't, that will be very valuable in making this more appealing to you. What I mean by no class is this. Classes as in terms of socioeconomic situations. We want this education to be accessible to all. And if there are things that are stopping that from happening, parents or guardians, I'll have some more information for you in a moment as to what to do about it. The importance of rules diminish when not in school, because they are not school rules anymore. They are the rules of wherever you are. But all of the freedoms come with increased responsibilities. You know, when I was your age, I wanted to do certain things that I considered as freedom. I wanted to drink alcohol. I wanted to smoke cigarettes. I wanted to stay up all night. I wanted to do this or that. That's what I wanted to do when I was your age. That's why when I see people smoking, I do issue my smoking lecture. But what I found out with all of those things that I thought of as freedom come huge responsibility, sometimes crippling responsibilities. And literally every single thing that I thought of as freedom also had the capacity, if it was overused or misused, to enslave me. Like the cigarettes I was enslaved to from 29 to 55, that I can still feel the capacity in my lungs that it took away. That was not freedom, that was slavery. And so, with this freedom that you have at home comes the responsibility to make the most of it. You are free not to make the most of it, and your business will be damaged accordingly. And your business is your education, so that will also damage your future. I don't want that to happen. I want to make this as engaging as possible so that you will do everything you can to get the most out of this time. For those of us that thought that someone else was responsible for our education, obviously, today our business is our education, and our education is our future. So we have the chance to choose what kind of future we have based on how we apply ourselves to this new education environment. And I expect that some parts of this will stay in place, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that in future. So when we return to school, albeit in a phased approach, whatever that means, with social distancing and whatever that does to us, maybe we have 10 people in class, 20, maybe it's all 30, but at different times, who knows? That we will be able to adapt to any of those situations because we've built our business of the future, our education, to be done from anywhere. So all armies have weapons, just like all businesses have tools. So what are our weapons or tools against COVID-19? Well, the great news for us is this. Most soldiers don't get to use their weapons after the war is over. At least we hope not. We do, because our weapons are our tools for life. Learning to use them prepares us to succeed long after COVID-19 is dead. So you may have thought that business class was simply about learning about business concepts. But we're now going to start learning heavily about business tools, about tools that you can use not just for business, but for your personal life. About tools that you can use not just in business class, but in maths class, in English class, at university. These tools will be of value to you for the rest of your life. So our tools must meet certain criteria. They must allow us to learn from home, from school, or when traveling. The files we access must be the same wherever we are so that we can evidence our progress. This is so important after what happened to the year 11s last year. In most subjects, not in business as it happens, but in most subjects, the exams cannot take place. And so the importance of those school files and what is evidenced there about your learning is crucial to the mark that's ultimately received. So I have students say, well, I'm just going to keep some files at home and some at school. No, they all need to be kept in your school files, and we'll go through how that's possible when you're working from home. So our processes, so files must be accessed from wherever we are, and our processes, how we use our tools, should be consistent wherever we are. And so one of the thoughts I'm having right now is we need to prepare for getting back into the building. We need to make sure that this learning is supported to the learning in class. And we need to make sure that if we have a number of people absent for whatever reason, self-isolating or whatever else, that we're able to keep them up to date. So how do we make what we're doing today applicable right back when we get into the classroom again? So we should bring our tools, we should use our tools to bring out the strengths of each environment. And I'll give you an example of that. One of the things that I do in class that I'm not going to do anymore, I couldn't do anyway if I wanted to, but I didn't like doing it, was side-by-side marking of the worksheets that were submitted. I find it very difficult at my age to do more than one thing at once. I like to focus, and I found it very difficult to focus on giving constructive feedback to someone while pandemonium was happening around us while I did that. So now we take some tools that I've learned about. I taught myself Zoom over Easter break. It's easier to learn at your age than it is at mine. It was fairly scary at first, and I tried to run a live class and lost control of it. That was quite funny as well. But it's been a learning experience for me. And I've had to ask students for some help as well. And I've had to get used to doing that because these tools are tools that you were more likely to be familiar with than me. So one of the things that I've learned about that function, other than the virtual classes, which will be becoming live once we're certain that we understand all the rules about how to run them. So these virtual classes that are currently pre-recorded, there's another function, and it's called a personal meeting room. And I've started using that. You probably all had invitations. I send invitations out for one class every 2 weeks for you, where I just have office hours. You can come into my virtual office. You can see my face. You won't have any choice because it's on the video. But I won't require you to turn on your video. I know that many of you, your office is also your bedroom, so it's not necessarily appropriate for you to turn on the video. But I will require audio so that we can talk. And I do want to show you, literally through screen sharing, how to resolve any challenges that you have if I know the answer, or get you to someone who can. So I've been using this virtual meeting to meet face-to-face with my students under these situations. The fact of the matter is, when we go back into the class, I'm thinking, why wouldn't I use that exact same tool to do the side-by-sides with feedback, but this time turn it into written feedback right in front of the student? And I don't have to violate your personal space or step into, sit among students that I think you don't feel very comfortable when I do that. I can do that remotely and will be consistent with social distancing. So just a way to look at what's happened, the tools that we've had to use as a result, and those same tools can make our learning experience better when we go back into the classroom. So our tools should help us communicate when needed and in the most effective manner, and to receive the information we need. And our tools should help us understand each other, our subjects, and the world around us better. So I do want to say something about access to these tools. Right now, everyone should have access to class charts, which is one tool I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to talk about some others. In order to access these tools, there are two requirements that we really can't get around, hardware and connectivity requirements. One, a reasonably recent smartphone, not one of the very first devices, in other words, but most others will work. A phone, or preferably a PC or tablet, because of the amount of writing we do. However, if I know that you just have a smartphone, I can adapt my expectations to that. So you just need to give me that information. Two, a reasonably fast and reliable internet connection. Now, I'm proud to be from St. Leonard's. I was born in Buchanan Hospital in 1962, a long time ago. And one of the things I love about our academy and our area is that it's among the most diverse in the UK. Whether we're raised in an environment where money is scarce, and that was certainly my upbringing, or we are the children of millionaires, our differences become our strengths when we learn together. That's the point I always try to get across about the seating chart. It's not just teacher demonstrating who's in charge. It is about having you sit next to people who are different than you, because they are the ones who have the gifts to offer you. Your friends, probably very similar to you, that's why you get along. But we don't necessarily learn from people who are similar to us. In fact, we can often get into trouble that way. We learn from people who are different. And so we have that possibility, but that also means there is an extreme, that there are extremes when it comes to what parents can afford for their children. So if there are issues with getting access to minimally a smartphone, preferably PC or tablet, and a reasonably fast and reliable internet connection, please do let me know and let me liaise with the school and see if any resources are available. And you can contact me at the email mentioned, si.hobden, HASLA.org, that should say, not .org.uk, or contact the school directly and just let them know that that is an issue, that you want your child to join the resistance against COVID-19 and win this war. But this is a challenge that you're having, and let's see what we can do, or at least what accommodations we can make in the requirements. So, our education, our future, our business, our tools. Students, I'm going to show you a picture. And I want you to tell me, or tell your parent or guardian, or whoever's with you, what you see when you see this picture. What is it and how do you use it? There's the picture. What is it and how do you use it? So I'm suspecting, you can pause now if you're not ready to answer that, but I'm suspecting that many of you said something along the lines of games, entertainment, fun, talking with friends. And that's how you see this. And I know that because very often when you're in class and when people aren't focused, we have PCs on every desk. And those that aren't focused, I see them playing video games with each other. I see them going to social media and trying to interact through social media. I've seen misuse of school email, for example, where I've said, wait a minute, this is not like personal email. Don't do that. You have requirements that I'm going to teach about as to how you use this email, because the school sees everything you're doing. So you see it one way. Now, what happens when I look at the same thing? And they didn't look that good when I first saw them. But I see this. I see a business tool. I never played games on these things. That kind of situation didn't exist. I graduated from university in 1983, the year the PC was invented. So these things didn't exist for me in my youth. They only existed since I've entered business. And I've done business manually from 83 to 86, and it was murder. It was an awful lot of work. So I know the work that these tools have saved us. And my job here is to present to you what I know about these tools and how they can help you in your business, the business of your future, your education. I'm going to briefly cover the tools for this presentation. The next presentation, I'm going to repeat my deep dive into how to get access to each of them, and with a lot better guidance than I gave the first time around, because I was learning as well, and I've learned since what you're seeing at home and some of the challenges that can be avoided in how you set them up. So I will have another presentation on the business tools in detail, and that should be coming out shortly, and you will get the link. So I'm going to summarize very quickly our tools and their purpose. we have class charts. We all know what class charts is used for. But in a business sense, class charts is a list of your work that is due, to whom and by when. And that is crucial to any business, to always keep in mind what you have due and when, because very, very often it's life. Nothing's due and then everything's due all at once. And if you don't have a plan for when everything's due all at once, then you don't get everything done, and that lets customers down and hurts your business very, very quickly. Particularly now that that information can get spread around the planet. So class charts really tells you what needs to be done, and I will put your assignments in there just as I always have. But I will be also turning them into a task for you in Outlook as well. And I'll explain this in a moment. So Outlook, from what you knew, Outlook was an email tool. I needed you to set it up to get access to our online knowledge base and a couple of other things. And it is email, but Outlook does a little bit more than that. Outlook combines email with a calendar with tasks. And what I'll be talking about in my tools presentation is primarily the email and the calendar part, and I'll introduce the tasks to you as you see the homework come through class charts. So what that does, it's very, very powerful because it takes your communication, written communication, it takes what manages your time, your calendar, and it combines that with the work you need to get done. And if you can get all of those three in combination at your age, you will be light years ahead of where I was, and you will have a key advantage that people will be looking for to employ in the workplace, however high the unemployment rate is. Emails are already created for you. I would say 95% of you have accessed them, and that's much appreciated. Everything will be coming through your email. I will also repeat it in class charts, but everything you need to know and our one-on-one communications will all be coming through email, calendar, and tasks through this thing called Outlook. So if you do not yet have a school email account, or you don't know what it is and you don't know how to set it up, please either contact me after you've seen the next presentation, which is a deep dive on how to do it. Folder without the E, that is the location where all of your school files are. Remember, we talked about the importance for students, particularly now, of keeping everything in one place securely under the school's IT umbrella. So folder can be accessed anywhere there's an internet connection. You can get to your files. It's just like your desktop in the classroom. Things are labeled a little bit differently, but all of your work is there, I promise. And if you use Microsoft Online, which is next, you will be able, literally, without moving your work to your home PC so you can work on it, you'll be able to open it from your school files, work on it. You don't even need to save it. That's something I found out, by the way, because Microsoft Online saves as you go. Microsoft Online is a way to access your files real time with Microsoft software. And there are three pieces of software that you need in business and probably in your other classes. The first one, Word. All of your worksheets are in Word. And if you can't open Word because you don't have the Microsoft licenses, Microsoft Online gives you that capability. It then saves your work as you do it, and it even routes it to me at the end for marking without you needing to save it as an attachment and then move it back over to your school files and everything else. And so I will go over that in the revised tools presentation. iAchieve is what we invested in for business and IT classes. It is the knowledge base for the course. So the content has been verified by the exam boards to meet all of the criteria to do well on that exam. So that's why I teach from it. You don't need textbooks. It is your textbook, and you have access to it wherever you have an internet connection. And I would encourage you to follow along with me as I'm teaching from it, that you look where it is so that you know how to get back there. Shobi. Shobi, I don't use currently, but I'm in the science department and a lot of the science teachers use it and students are really enjoying it. It's something of a virtual teacher's assistant, and it makes virtual learning a lot more fun and interactive. And the virtual teacher's assistant will even mark tests and return the results to you. So I will have some very basic information about how to sign up because I will be signing up myself. And then you will see me using that more and more and more in the future to make learning more exciting. The last element is Zoom and YouTube. Zoom is, for all intents and purposes, a personal or a classroom environment. It allows multiple video and or multiple audio and a shared experience that can be adapted very easily for learning. I use Zoom to record. What you're seeing now is recorded in Zoom. And then I place recordings that I've done onto my YouTube channel almost immediately. And then your class is set up as a playlist on my YouTube channel. So wherever you are, you can see your lessons, and at any time, really. You don't. We would want you to join, preferably when class is scheduled, because that's getting you into the habits that we will return to in the building. But that is available to you. Now, currently, I am pre-recording, and I'm pre-recording because some of you gave me a lesson in what I can't control on Zoom, and I've since learned to control it, by the way. So I lost control of my whiteboard in the first live class I did, and someone drew a picture of male anatomy on my whiteboard, which I'm sure it was hilarious, and was hilarious to me as well. I just didn't know how to stop it. So anyway, when the lessons are live, there will be some rules that are expected. I will give you control to unmute yourself, but I expect that done when I ask questions or when I need to hear from you. None of your audio or video will be recorded per our guidelines as you are students. My video, however, is always recorded, and you're always warned of that up front. So live lessons will be coming in as soon as the teachers are fully trained. If someone disrupts a lesson, they will immediately be muted and they won't be able to unmute themselves. And if they continue the disruption on a visual basis or some other form, I will move them into the waiting room for a class for a period of time, or till the end of the class, or for a length of time. They won't be able to join live classes. They'll just have to look at the tapes. So that's Zoom. The video is placed on YouTube, my YouTube channel. Most of you have accessed at this point. It is the St. Leonard's Academy Means Business. That is the name of my YouTube channel, and you'll find your videos under your class list. So that is the tools in brief. And just looking now at the test. Great, here we are. So the test. So I have 8 questions for you worth a total of 10 points. Question number 8 is worth 3 points. And these are looking at our education, our future, our business, your business of the future, your education, and the way we've talked about setting it up in this presentation. And I've got some questions for you that cover I Achieve Unit 1, Sessions 1 and 2 that everyone should be familiar with. So I would expect you to do very, very well in these questions. I'm going to move my video over for just 1 second while I do this. So I'm going to go through the questions first, and then before I give you the answers, I'll give you a chance to pause so that you can finish writing down the answers at home. In our virtual business of our future, our education, question 1, what is our business structure? What is our business structure? Remember, we looked at 6 business structures. They were sole trader, partnership, private limited company, public limited company, co-op, and franchise. Which one of those is your business structure for your virtual business of the future, our education? Okay. So 2, what is our product? And is it a good or a service? What is the product of our virtual business of our future, our education? And is it a good or is it a service? 3, what is our price? In other words, what do we have to invest to get it? What do we have to invest to get it? What is our price? 4, what is our place of business? Where do we do business? What is our place of business? 5, what is our promotion strategy? How do we promote that this is something that would be good to do? Think about what you're seeing now and where you're seeing it. 6, who is our majority investor? Who put up most of the investment in us to put us into business in our virtual business of the future, our education? Who invested in us to make that happen? Who is the primary or the majority investor? 7, who is our primary supplier? Who is the primary, or what is the primary entity that supplies what we need for our virtual business of the future, our education? And number 8, worth triple points. And this seems like the simplest question of all, but it might be the hardest. Worth triple points. In our virtual business of our future, our education, which we're launching today if we've not already done so from our homes or from anywhere, who is our customer? Who is our customer? If you would like more time to write down the answers to these 8 questions before I ask your parent or guardian to mark it, please, by all means, pause the video right now. Okay, so the answers in our virtual business of the future, our education, what is our business structure? Well, if you said partnership between student, parent, or guardian and teacher, that would be the correct answer. You're not in this alone. You're not a sole trader. Okay. So what is our product, and is it a good or a service? Well, the product's really a giveaway because it's in the title. Our product is our education. I will also accept learning. Education or learning. It is definitely a service. It's intangible. You can't touch it and feel it necessarily, but it is real. And it will be of value to you in the future. What is our price? What do we have to invest to get it? If you said time, that is definitely one thing you have to invest. You also correct would be curiosity, effort, dedication, and I will even accept priceless for its marketing value. All of those are acceptable. So time, curiosity, effort, dedication, or it's priceless. All of those are correct answers. What is our place of business? It is virtual. It is anywhere. So if you said home or school, no. Our virtual business of the future is virtual. What is our promotion strategy? Well, you're probably seeing this on YouTube. So online, social media, this presentation, all of those would be correct. Who is our majority investor? You probably found this to be a very strange question, but I'll guarantee your parent or guardian didn't, because they have invested tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of pounds to this point in your life, in you. So your majority investor is your parent or guardian. Who is our primary supplier? The school, the teacher. So I'm your supplier for business class, but I relied very heavily on the school to make some wonderful resources available. And the school had jumped through hoops to give us the possibility to have some virtual tools very quickly, some of which weren't planned till next year. And finally, worth triple points. Who is our customer? Who is the customer for our virtual business of our future, our education? Who is that customer? I am, or the student would be correct. This business model is revolutionary because not only is it focused on you, on your education, but you are also the customer. So also acceptable is any future employer fortunate enough to secure his or her talents. So they are the customer, they're a secondary customer. Because of your education, you're then able to be of greater service to them. Does that make sense? Good. Okay, so now the marking scale, parent or guardian, if you could take over at this point, please, and mark it based on the number of correct or incorrect answers. Total points, with number 8 being worth 3 points. If you've got 0 to 3, student, shame on you. Please review I Achieve Unit 1, Sessions 1 and 2 before proceeding with Session 3. Thank you. If you've got 4 out of 10, it's a level 1 pass. 5 out of 10, level 1 merit. 6 out of 10, level 1 distinction. 7 out of 10, it's a level 2 pass. That's a pass for the whole course. Not now, but that's the equivalent. 8 out of 10, it's a level 2 merit. 9 out of 10, it's a level 2 distinction. And you've got 10 out of 10, that is a level 2 distinction star. And that's hats off to you, because I intentionally made these pretty difficult questions. Lastly, we all need a laugh. So I put together my top 10 rules for learning from home. These do not change school rules in any way. They're just a way for us to lighten up and have a joke in these very stressful times. So here are my top 10 rules for learning from home. Number 10, please use your mobile phone. I'll bet you're looking at me at this on your mobile phone right now. Number 9, miss a class, watch the video on our YouTube channel. Now I say that for an occasional class missed. I would expect most of you to be watching these videos at the time that the class was scheduled. Thank you. 8, if you make a mess, that really isn't my problem. Good luck with that. So what I'm saying is, if you make a mess, home rules apply, not classroom rules. So please don't make a mess. Bunk in business class. Parents and friends are welcome. Just forward the link, and if we're in a live meeting, introduce them through the chat so that people know that we have guests. I welcome, one advantage to this technology is that parents, you are welcome into my class at any time, and you are certainly welcome to give me any feedback on how you think things are going and things that I could do to improve the situation. So again, we can be that much more flexible that we can forward invitations and have guests join. 6, call me anything you'd like. Hobnob, Simon, which is my first name, blankety blank blank blank. Just make sure that the mute button is on. 5, eating and drinking are encouraged. Again, home rules apply. Consult your parent or guardian. 4, hoodies are okay as long as they aren't worn back to front with the hood up. In other words, if you're going to put your video on, I'd like to know who I'm talking to. 3, I'd better not see you in a uniform. Left that blazer at school again? Good. So no uniforms allowed in the home learning environment. 2, no assigned seats. Don't worry. Please sit, stand, or lay anywhere you'd like. Home rules apply. Really, get comfortable. want you comfortable while you're learning in this environment. And number one, it's your place, so therefore it's your rules. So please do note that in our place, school rules apply, and that is when we meet again, which I'm sure will be very soon. Lastly, I wanted to sort of take a pledge and make a declaration as a way to end this class, and my future videos won't run for the full hour, I promise. So, our education, our future, our business, our response to our challenge. And this is what I think our response should be to have the maximum impact on COVID-19. Requiring no permission, but the initiative to make the best of our current situation, we, students, parents, and teachers, declare that our business of the future, our education, is open for business and that no threat, including COVID-19, will close it again. Thank you so much. And I look forward to interacting with you online in many different ways as we take your learning and your business of the future, your education, on a journey to where the learning is.